Hi everyone, my name is Chilla. I'm going to be your teacher for the Intermediate 3 course. As we are going to cover the last 4 units of your intermediate book, there will be a lot of new grammar and vocabulary items that you might find a little bit difficult at first. But with hard work, I'm sure you will have no problems at all. I hope you will enjoy the lessons. Let's get it started then. Now please open your student's book on page 70. This is where you can find Unit 9, which is the first unit of your Intermediate 3 course. It depends how you look at it. In this unit, we are going to cover all the conditionals, and I'm sure that you are already familiar with the zero conditional, the first conditional, and most likely with the second conditional as well. But there will be a new one during this course, the third conditional, about the past. And then words with similar meaning, which will cover some interesting vocabulary items, and dealing with money, everyday English expressions that I'm sure you will find useful. So first things first, let's have a look at the starter section. Ideas can be looked at in different ways. Work in groups. Think of some pros and cons of being a teenager. Now, first of all, I wonder if you know the meaning of pros and cons. Pros and cons. Now, pros are the good things, and cons are the bad things of being a teenager in this case. Now, I'm not sure about your age. Most of you probably are older than 18, but I'm sure you all remember the time when you were a teenager. That can be quite a challenging period of time for both the teenager and the parents. So this is what I want you to think about a little bit. There are some examples. Pros, the good things, can be that you aren't a kid anymore and that you are becoming more independent. And then some examples for cons, the bad things, are that you aren't a child but you aren't an adult, somewhere in between. That can be difficult for some. And that you don't have any money still. So I want you to have some more ideas, and I need you to work in groups in order to exchange some interesting ideas. So I want your teacher to put you in groups of 3. So I need 3 students in each group. And please make a list of good things and bad things of being a teenager. I need you to write at least 3 ideas on both sides. Okay? Off you go. I'm sure you all had some very interesting ideas, and that's why I want you to share it with the whole class now. Okay? So your task is to compare ideas as a class. And here are some more pros and cons of being a teenager. You can look at the screen and compare these examples with your ideas and have an open class discussion about them. I'm sure you had some very interesting ideas to share about being a teenager. Now please have a look at your student's book again. Exercise number 1, Billy's story. So the main character of this story that we are going to discuss later on is Billy. Billy is obviously a teenager, as you could guess, and if you look at exercise number 1, let's read the 2 questions together. Why are some kids bullied? And why do some kids become bullies? Now the main question is whether you know the meaning of bully, to be bullied and to be a bully, as a verb and as a noun. I'm sure you already noticed that in the first question, are bullied is a passive structure, but what exactly does bully mean? Bully as a verb means to hurt or frighten someone who is smaller or less powerful than you, often forcing them to do something they do not want to do. I'm sure you know what I mean, and if you are not exactly sure, you can always ask your teacher. But unfortunately, a lot of teenagers go through a hard time when they go to primary school or secondary school, and they feel weak and insecure, and there are some other students who think they are bigger and more powerful than others, and that's why they sometimes hurt or frighten other students at school. And of course, because it's such a sensitive stage of your life, some students, some teenagers don't like to talk about it because they are afraid. So that's when they are bullied. And why do some kids become bullies? Bullies. So in this question, you can see that bully is a noun. Now let's have a look at the meaning of bully as a noun. I'm sure you could guess that this is the person who hurts or frightens someone who is smaller or less powerful than them, often forcing them to do something they do not want to do. So those are the people who we call bullies. I want you to work in pairs. So please, teacher, put the students in pairs and ask these two questions. Why are some kids bullied? In any school, anywhere in the world, why are some kids bullied? And why do some kids become bullies? So now the second question is asking about the people. Why do some teenagers think that they are more powerful and stronger than others? They have the right to frighten and hurt others, which is a really sad thing, of course, but it still happens, unfortunately. So please turn to your partner and talk about these two questions for about 2 minutes. Only speaking, off you go. Now please share your ideas with the class. I'm sure it would be very interesting to compare your ideas with the others. So after you shared your ideas in open class, then we're going to read about Billy, the teenager I mentioned earlier, and we're going to see what his problems are. So please look at the pictures. All over page 70 and some on page 71. Right. So look at exercise number 2. Exercise number 2. The instruction says, read about Billy. What are his problems? So that's what we need to focus on. His problems, probably at school or maybe at home. We'll find out about that after reading his story. Before you read the story though, let's have a look at some of the new words that you might find useful to know before you read the text. So tough. Tough as an adjective. Tough means difficult to do or to deal with. When something is tough, That's when you find something difficult to do or to deal with. Play truant. Play truant. When you play truant, you are regularly absent from school without permission. This is when you tell your parents in the morning that you're going to school, and in fact you're not actually going to school. Maybe you are meeting your friends, you're having fun, or maybe you're just afraid of going to school because you are being bullied there. So there are many reasons why some students play truant. They are absent from school without permission. Now please have a look at the pictures and read about Billy on your own first. Look at the pictures and read the sentences that you can find in each picture. Off you go. Now please turn to your partner and have a look at the pictures together now and discuss what you can see in each picture and answer this very simple question in exercise number 2. What are Billy's problems? Please work together with your partner. This is only a speaking activity. There's no need to write down anything. Off you go. I'm sure you all noticed that this is actually a leaflet that gives some information about Billy's story. And if you look at this information under the last picture on page 71, you can find this organization called KidCare, who produced this leaflet. So what would you do? If you're being bullied, contact KidCare. We're on your side. And you can find a phone number. So what is KidCare? KidCare is an organization that helps children who are being bullied, obviously. And who is the leaflet directed at? Young people like Billy, exactly. Those who are in trouble and don't know what to do. This is an organization who would like to help those people. What about Billy's problems? Now that you shared your ideas in pairs, please have a look at the screen and compare your ideas with the sentences on the screen and discuss them in open class. As you can see, this poor guy Billy had a lot of problems. I'm sure you have a lot of ideas how to help him as a parent or as a family member, let's say a brother or a sister, or someone at school. Now please have a look at exercise number 3 on page 71. Exercise number 3 on page 71. The question is, what would you do if you were one of these people? So what would you do if you were? And you can obviously see this magic word if. So what sort of grammar structure is this? One of the conditionals. Which one exactly? The second conditional. That's right. So first of all, I want to ask your teacher to give a role to each student. So one student should only imagine being only one of these people. So one student should be Billy's mom, someone, Billy's sister, Billy's dad, Billy's head teacher, a counselor from Kid Care. A counselor from Kid Care. Now, do you know the meaning of a counselor? A counselor, you might know actually, but just to make sure, a counselor is a person who is trained to listen to people and give them advice. So this is their job, to actually listen to other people's problems and try to give them advice. A counselor from Kid Care. You still know what Kid Care is, right? The organization that is trying to help young people in trouble. And of course, someone should be Billy. And if you have more than 6 students in the class, then of course more than one person can be Billy's mom, Billy's sister, and so on and so forth. Okay? But the important thing is that you should only imagine being just one character. So after you've done that, now you know who you need to imagine to be, and then the task is, what would you do if you were that person? Look at the example. If I were Billy's mom, I'd go to the head teacher and explain what was happening. We've already mentioned that the used structure here is the second conditional. Now, do you still remember how to form a second conditional sentence? Now, here's a reminder of the second conditional, just to make sure that you use the right form in your sentences. So in a second conditional sentence, after if, we need to use the past simple. That's the if clause. And in the other part of the sentence, we need would, which is in speaking usually contracted to apostrophe D. Now, if you have a look at this example sentence, if I were Billy's mom, if I were. Yes, after if, past simple is used. But what is interesting in this part of the sentence is that after I, instead of was, which is normally the correct form of the verb to be in the past simple after I, were is used. And why is that? It's very simple. I'm sure you remember from the time when you first learned about the second conditional that was is often changed to were in the conditional clause, which means after if, we use the past simple, and instead of was, it's better to use were. As simple as that. And of course, the second conditional is about the unreal present. So this is just imaginary, but this is about the present though. Just because we use the past simple, it doesn't mean it's about the past, it's still about the present. So hope you're going to be able to make very nice second conditional sentences now. So please open your notebook and write down one sentence with the correct second conditional form. Imagine that you are one of these people, and what would you do if you were them? That is the question. 2 minutes, off you go. Now that you have your sentences, please turn to your partner and share your second conditional sentences with each other. Make sure that you correct each other's mistakes if there are any. Don't be shy. We are all here to learn. And after you shared your sentences with your partner, please have an open class discussion, which means I need your teacher to name some students, and please read your sentences aloud in front of the class. And if anybody has a different opinion, if you agree or disagree with each other, please speak up and have a nice open class discussion. Off you go. I'm sure you had a really interesting discussion with the rest of the class. And now that you've already shared your ideas, let's have a look at exercise number 4 on the same page. Exercise number 4. Listen, who are the 6 speakers imagining they are? So we are going to listen to 6 people imagining they are one of these. So Billy's mom, Billy's sister, Billy's dad, Billy's head teacher, a counselor from Kid Care, or Billy himself. Okay? But before we listen, let's make sure that you know all the new vocabulary items. You might just find this one. Bang people's heads together. What does it mean to bang people's heads together? It means to speak angrily to people to stop them behaving badly. That's what it means. You're going to hear that at one point. The first one we're going to do as an example together. Okay? So what I need you to do now is to open your notebook. You're going to write down the number of the speaker and who they are. Okay? So for example, let's listen to speaker 1 together. Listen carefully.
Unit 9. Tape script 9.1. Billy's story. Speaker 1.
I'd organise a school day which tried to educate everyone about bullying. And I'd invite social workers, police and psychologists.
So that was the example, number 1. And as you can see here, speaker 1 was the head teacher. A person imagining he is Billy's head teacher. From now on, I'm not going to stop the recording, so make sure you write down the number of the speaker and the person who they are imagining to be. Are you ready? Off you go.
Speaker 2.
I'd get my dad to speak to those... Ugh! If I was older, I'd speak to them myself.
Speaker 3.
I'd ask Billy to try to understand the bullies. I'd get all the parents to meet together.
Speaker 4.
I'd move house so we could change his school and start again somewhere new.
Speaker 5.
I'd get really angry and bang the bullies' heads together.
Speaker 6.
I'd run away.
Right. If you need to listen to the recording again, that's not a problem. Please ask your teacher to play it again for you. And now, before we check your answers, please turn to your partner and compare your answers. Now please look at the screen and check your answers. Now let's move on to exercise number 5. Exercise number 5. Look at the Kid Care report. Read what the counselor wrote about Billy. What did Billy do? And there are a few questions you'll need to answer after you've read the text. You can find the Kid Care report here. So that's missing, the missing Billy here. So Billy Simmons, age 14, counselor Carmen Delaney. So that's the report that you need to read on your own first. Okay, so everyone, you have 2 minutes. Individually, please read the text first. After you have read the text on your own, now please turn to your partner and have a look at these 3 questions. Question number 1. Did people listen to Billy? Question number 2. Did he talk to Kit Care? And question number 3. Did his father stay? Now let's check the answers to these questions together. So, did people listen to Billy? No, they didn't, unfortunately. Did he talk to Kit Care? No, he didn't. And did his father stay? No, he didn't. And how do we know these answers to these questions? Now let's have a look at this text again, now together, especially the sentences in bold. These 3 sentences. Right. So if they'd listened to him, they'd have understood. If his father had stayed, Billy might have felt happier. And if he'd talked to us, we could have helped him. These 3 sentences that you can see in bold in the text. Let's have a closer look at all these sentences. When we answered these questions in exercise number 5, for example, did people listen to Billy? We said, no, they didn't. Now, how do we know? Look at this first sentence. If they'd listened to him, they'd have understood. Now, did they listen to him? They didn't. So, this sentence is unreal, but we are wondering if they had listened to him. As you can see, this apostrophe D is for had. So this is a contraction. Had listened to him. Now, do you recognize this structure by any chance? That's right. This is past perfect. Past perfect. Had plus the past participle of the verb. And then what about the next clause? They'd have understood. Apostrophe D is a contraction for would in this case. Would have and understood the past participle of the verb. So we have would have plus PP, the past participle of the verb, in the other part of the sentence. What about the second sentence? Did his father stay? If his father had stayed, Billy might have felt happier. Did his father stay? No, he didn't. But let's think about what if. So if his father had stayed, again we are using the past perfect. If plus past perfect, and in this case it's not would, it's might. Might have plus the past participle of the verb. And did he talk to Kit Care? No, he didn't. But if he'd talked to us, says Kit Care, we could have helped him. So now we have would have, might have, and could have, plus the past participle of the verb. So is this about reality? No, it isn't. It's unreal because it didn't happen. But is this about the present as the second conditional? Are we wondering about these things now? What if these things happen now? No. We are wondering about the past. So it's about the unreal past, something that didn't happen, and we are wondering what could have, might have, or would have happened if it had happened. So that's what we call the third conditional. And don't worry, this is the last one of all the conditionals. So we're done. Once we had enough practice, we can say confidently that we know how to use all the conditionals. Now let's have a look at the grammar spot on the same page. Let's do this together. A bit more grammar, unfortunately. So, number 1, first things first. The second conditional sentences express an unreal situation about the present. As we discussed earlier, for unreal present, we use the second conditional. If I was in trouble, I'd come to you for help. But I'm not in trouble. I just imagine the situation. So we use the past simple after if and would. And then we have the third conditional that we have just mentioned. Third conditional sentences express an unreal situation about the past. If you'd told me about your problems, I'd have helped you. But you didn't tell me, so I didn't help. So after if, we use the past perfect, which is had, the helping verb had, plus the past participle of the verb, and then would have, and again the past participle of the verb. Have a look at number 2. Which two of these modal verbs express a possibility? I would have helped you, I might have helped you, or I could have helped you. So which two express a possibility? I would have helped you means I would have done that, definitely, for sure, 100%, if you had told me about your problems, but you didn't tell me, so I didn't help. I might have helped you expresses possibility, and I could have helped you again expresses possibility. That's right. So the last two, might have and could have. And number 3, look at this sentence. Pete shouldn't have stolen the money. My question is, did he steal the money? Yes, he did. Do you think it was a good thing to do? I don't think so. So, is this good advice? It's not advice for the present. It's again about the past. But in this case, it means he did steal the money, but I don't think it was a good thing to do. So that's when I say he shouldn't have stolen the money. Now, if you open your student's book on page 143 at the back of your book, sorry, 142, my mistake, 142, this is where you can find the grammar references. Now, Unit 9, (9.1), a general grammar revision of the conditionals. You can find here. And then 9.2 down here is a revision of the second conditional, improbable conditions, unreal present. And then if you turn to the next page, you can find a lot of example sentences for the second conditional, explanations, revision, comparison between the first or second conditional, and then 9.4, third conditional, impossible conditions. By impossible, we mean it didn't happen. So although we are wondering about what could have happened, might have happened, or would have happened in the past, it still didn't happen. So it's impossible. Again, you can find lots of example sentences for positive, negative sentences and questions, and hopefully you can get answers to all your questions. So I suggest you should definitely read through the grammar references at home as your homework. Okay? We're not going to read all these sentences together here in class because it would take a lot of time, and unfortunately I wouldn't be able to answer your questions. But you go home on your own, sit down at home nicely and read all the sentences carefully. Do it at your own pace, and hopefully you'll get the answers to all your questions. Now let's go back to page 71 in your student's book, page 71, exercise number 6. Make a sentence using if and the prompt. For example, number 1, people didn't understand what Billy was going through. We have understood, wouldn't, and run away. By using these words, we need to write a third conditional sentence about the unreal past, wondering what would have happened. So if they'd understood, if people had understood, if plus the past perfect, he wouldn't have run away. Wouldn't have plus the past participle of the verb. So that's what I need you to do in sentence number 2, 3, and 4. Please work on your own first. Okay, so please open your notebook and write down the 3 third conditional sentences before you compare your answers. Make sure you work individually. Off you go. And after you've done all the 3 sentences, please turn to your partner and compare your answers. Make sure you help each other with the mistakes. Now let's check your answers together. Make sure that you used the correct form of the third conditional structure. So number 2, what did we have here? Gone, could, talked, and problems. If he had gone to kid care, he could have talked about his problems. So we have he plus past perfect, he had gone, and he could have talked. What about number 3? We had left, Billy might, felt more secure. If his father hadn't left, Billy might have felt more secure. So this is a negative sentence. That's why we need hadn't. So the auxiliary verb had is in the negative. And Billy might have felt more secure. And the last one, number 4, the bullies threatened him. We have threatened, he wouldn't, and run away. If the bullies hadn't threatened him, he wouldn't have run away. Wouldn't have run away. So if the bullies hadn't threatened him, again, a negative, and he wouldn't have run away. I really hope that you managed to write these 3 third conditional sentences without any mistakes. I really, really hope so. But don't be sad if you still made some mistakes, because I'm going to give you a lot of homework so you can practice to make sure that you won't make any mistakes with the third conditional again. Right, so I believe time is up for today, and let's see what homework you'll need to do for tomorrow. Now please open your workbook on page 59. Your workbook on page 59. Page 59. So if you look at exercise number 1 first, recognizing conditionals. It has 2 parts. Number 1, do the quiz. What kind of friend are you? This is just for fun, but with some hidden grammar practice. What kind of friend are you? So look at this quiz. There are 6 questions and 2 answers to each question. So please choose whichever is true for you. So do the quiz, and then you can actually check the answers here at the bottom of the page. Not the answers, but to find out what kind of friend are you. First answer the questions and then have a look at these small letters upside down at the bottom of the page. Okay? To find out what kind of friend are you. And then the second part of this exercise is here. Find examples of these conditional forms from the quiz to complete the chart. So it's still about the quiz, but you need to find examples for all the 4 conditionals. The first one, if plus present, which is which conditional? The 0 conditional. And then number 2, when we have if plus present and will, first conditional, and if plus past plus would, second conditional, and our new grammar structure from today, if plus past perfect plus would have, third conditional. That's right. You can find examples in the quiz. So that's what I need you to write here. And then let's move on to page 60. Page 60. Still about the conditionals, as you could expect. Types of conditional. Again, you have all the 4 conditionals here. Match the lines in the charts to make conditional sentences. So we have the 0 conditionals. You just need to match the lines to make nice 0 conditional sentences. And then we have the first conditional here. Again, you just need to match the lines. You have questions, you have negative sentences, positive sentences, so it's a really good practice for all the conditionals. And then we have the unreal present, second conditional, and the third conditional, your new favorite, I can imagine. Okay, so that's all you need to do, just to match the lines. So that's an easy one. And then in exercise number 3, possible conditions. If plus will, might, must, should. Match a line in A. Again, some matching with a line in B to make nice conditional sentences. And we haven't finished yet. I'm really sorry, but we need lots of revision of the conditionals. Like this one here on page 61, exercise number 4, improbable conditions. What would you do? Read social dilemmas 1 to 7. Put the verbs in brackets in the correct form. So in the first part of the exercise, you need to just complete the sentences. What would you do if? So all the questions start with what would you do? Just wondering. So you have the verbs in brackets, you just need to put them in the correct form. And because it's about improbable conditions, because it's about what would you do, unreal present. So which conditional are you going to use? The second conditional, that's right. Now let's move on to the second and the third parts of this exercise. We have number 2 here. Read the responses. Put the verbs in brackets in the correct form. So they are responses to the questions in the first part of this exercise, but again, you need to correct the sentences with the correct form of the verbs in brackets. Don't forget to use the second conditional for unreal present. If plus past simple, would, That's right. And the third part of this exercise is match people's responses to the social dilemmas. People's responses to the social dilemmas. What does that mean? For example, 1D. So social dilemma number 1. What would you do if you found a wallet with £10 in it and no name inside? And according to the example, 1D, I keep it. It's not that much money. How? I find the owner. I'm not going to help you to complete this sentence, but that would be the response to that social dilemma number 1. Okay, so have fun with it. So that was lesson number 1. I hope you enjoyed it. Lots of things to do, lots of practice, lots of homework in the workbook, and don't forget about the grammar references at the back of your student's book on page 142. Thank you for today. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a nice day.